Let's talk theater with Julie Whitney Scott. Well, hello. I am so excited that on Let's Talk Theater, I have with me two leading ladies in the theater world right here in Central Ohio. They are responsible for all of the year's work that we see that comes out of MadLab. It's Colleen Dunne and Laura Spires. They are the two leading ladies behind the scenes, and I must admit, I have also seen them in front of the scenes at MadLab, acting, directing, writing, doing all kind of things. And I wanted to bring them to the theater audience here in Central Ohio and beyond, because this is Let's Talk Theater. And one of the things we want to talk about in Let's Talk Theater is why we doing what we doing. So I don't care which one of you ladies start, you decide, and just start off with first introducing yourself and telling people a little bit about how did you get to be where you are in theater today?
All right. Well, I can start. This is Laura. I am the artistic director of MadLab, and I started doing theater when I was 9 years old. I started doing shows at the Mansfield Playhouse in Mansfield, where I grew up, and theater was a really big part of my life, my whole childhood and high school. And then when I went to college at OSU, I tried really hard to find a major that wasn't theater, and I just didn't like anything else that I was studying. So I wound up majoring in theater at OSU and really, really loved it. And I found MadLab about 8 years ago, saw my first show there on the same day that I auditioned for the first time there, and then I just never, ever left. And I got appointed artistic director almost 3 years ago. I've had a lot of my first at MadLab. It was the first show that I directed was with MadLab. I've gotten a lot of really great opportunities there and gotten to really grow. And yeah, here I am. So theater's just been a really big part of my life for pretty much forever.
I'm Colleen Dunne, and I'm the managing director at MadLab. And I also started doing theater around the age of 9. It was third grade. Is that roughly third grade?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so third grade, I did my first school play. And then fourth grade, I did my first professional production with the Bijou Theater in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I'm from. And then from there, I started doing touring productions where we would tour to local schools and we would perform at libraries and bookstores and all sorts of weird things. And I always say it's the most money I ever made off theater was when I was like 10 years old. They paid me a lot better than I've been getting paid as an adult to do theater. But then I had to take a break. High school wouldn't give me the time off school to travel like I was doing prior. So I did take a break through high school and college, and then I came back to it as an adult. And through a series of fortunate, we'll say, events, I ended up in Columbus, and I started going to an improv meetup, even though I am not an improviser, just to try and meet people and make friends. And somebody from that meetup group invited me to go see a show at MadLab, and just the show, the building, everything about the experience, I felt very at home there immediately. And I asked, when are your next auditions? And they said, it's like 2 weeks away. And I showed up and I got the part and I haven't left. And now I'm the managing director, and I get to work with my best friend, and my husband's our publicity director, and it's quite a family production.
You know, it must be very exciting, because I noticed how you, when you were trying to figure out how old you were when you started, how you looked at Laura, and then that let me know immediately, like, oh, see, they must be really good friends, been a long time, because you know, you only look at your people who known you that long to verify, like, how long has it been? You know, they know exactly how old you are. Well, that sounds so exciting. Talk to us a little bit about being a woman and being the head of a theater company, because I mean, in the head is in far as you determine what's going to be shown and what's going to be produced. As women, it influences what you produce and the stories that you receive, and how do you determine that? Because we want to make sure that we include everybody and be diverse and all that, but we're still women, and so as women, and we know that in the world we're sometimes not given the credit and things that we would like to have, or not put in the forefront in stories. Most of the main characters in stories are who? Males, unless we actually make a conscious effort to produce right and bring about those. So talk a little bit about the challenges with MadLab and where you've been, because you said you've been with it now for a while. How's it involved?
Well, we definitely do take into consideration and I say we because Colleen is super involved in helping me select the scripts, and we definitely do work as a duo to make a lot of our decisions for the company. And we do put a lot of consideration into our trying to have an equal balance between male and female playwrights to try to get as balanced voices as possible forward for our audiences. And I think any woman in theater can tell you how hard it is to be a female actor, because all the parts are for men. Most of the parts are for men, especially, MadLab, we do new work, so we're kind of fortunate in that most of our plays are all very new. So they're a little bit more balanced than if you're looking at classic literature or something that was popular in the 80s or 90s. We're doing all new stuff. So that definitely is helpful in finding those diverse voices and keeping characters as evenly balanced as possible. I put a lot of thought into diversity in playwrights and also in characters. When I'm picking a script, there might be a really great script, but maybe it only has 2 parts for one type of actor, and maybe there's another great script that has the same parts for the same type. And it really takes a lot of consideration. I think for playwrights especially, they might not realize oh, my script didn't get picked, but some of the reasons it didn't get picked might have nothing to do with the actual content of the script itself. It could be because, well, your script had 4 women in their 20s, and I've got 8 other scripts that all have 4 women in their 20s, and I need to balance that out with age range, which is also a really big challenge for acting, to get parts for older people, as well as, there's so many parts for 20 somethings, and then apparently you stop doing interesting things after your 20s because playwrights don't write about it.
It's funny you said that, because 2 things you said I'm gonna piggyback on. Number one, as people who produce theater companies like we do, where we're looking at other works, as you said, it is the same as if you're an actor. You're going to get some parts and you're not going to get some parts, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're not good or your work isn't great. It just happens to do with you don't fit what we need at this particular time. And so that's good that you said that, because I'm sure that there are some writers out there who probably have sent things out and felt rejected and all that, and and may have been discouraged and not sent anything else out again, versus understanding that it has nothing to do with that. It's just at this time, this didn't fit, send it again somewhere else, just keep plowing at that.
Yeah.
And I think also something else you said too, in regards to the things that are written. And I find it's funny you said that, Laura, because that made me think as a writer. And I, as a senior writer, and I don't know if it's because I feel younger than I am or what, but sometimes when I'm writing, I have to consciously write things for seniors. And I don't know, and I'm gonna start thinking about that now since you brought that up, and make me think, because I do have seniors in several plays, that I've written, but I have to make a conscious effort to do that, because the majority of people don't really want to see what seniors are doing, or you know what I'm saying, or that people want to go and see young stuff, which is one of the reasons why I like MadLab, and one of the reasons why when I first started coming to see some of your plays that you guys put on, I appreciated, one, that it was original stuff. I really liked that, that it was new, and thoughtful, and some things were funny, but they still were thoughtful, and some things were just darn right stupid and silly, which I like to do because I think a lot and I like to bring down, you know, which you can only get from good, you know, just plain, this is just fun comedy, you know. Colleen, how do you as the manager part of that make sure that all of that what Laura wants to do, how does you give her the support that she needs to feel comfortable with making choices?
So as managing director, my job is basically the opposite of Laura's. She's in charge of all artistic decisions and I'm in charge of everything else. So the building, contracts, payments, vendors, all of those things, the boring parts. I think that my most important job in relation to Laura is just unfailing support. If she wants to try something bizarre, okay, like full support. This year, actually the last show we produced right before or right as the pandemic was hitting was a full-length play that we read together while working on a project, like over her shoulder on a phone. We read this script and we both loved it. And it was one of the truly bizarre ones that most theaters wouldn't produce. And it was going to be very expensive and very time consuming and very tech heavy and all of these aspects that pull me into it, where it's the money and the tech people. And she just had my complete support because it was a great piece. It was something super original. It was strong female characters, and it's my job to say yes and to help her make it happen.
And Colleen is really good at seeing the idea and then breaking it down into the steps. Like, okay, if that's your idea, here's the 10 things you need to do to make it happen. And Colleen is really good at keeping me on track and seeing those those mile markers that we need to hit in order to make something happen. Colleen's great at breaking down a project and keeping everyone on track. So not that that has anything to do with her role as managing director necessarily, but it's just her as a person is really good at doing that. So she definitely helps me see like what of my ideas are possible.
So talk to us a little bit about some of your theaters. And not only that, how you have reached out with other companies and things and have allowed them to come in and use MadLab's theater to present their productions and works over the past few years.
We're actually one of the most popular rental locations. We are lucky enough to own our own building, which most of the theater companies in Columbus are not or do not. So we are inexpensive, and while we're a small black box theater, it's also very intimate, and a lot of groups, not even necessarily theater companies, but groups such as sketch comedy troupes and improv troupes and stand-up comedians love our little space where it's easy to pack in a big crowd and get a big response. So we have been very lucky. We're able to rent to other companies. Actors Theater, when they aren't using the park, when it's cold, they'll use our space. AVL, Available Light Theater, will use our space. We work a lot with Dr. Show, which is a sketch improv vaudeville. They're regulars in our late night series where they come in and do wacky stuff after our full lengths are done. Tons of improv groups. We've hosted Improv Wars. We've had hashtag, all kinds of groups. Just it's a laboratory space. It's where people can come and play and experiment, and we're not afraid to fail. And so we'll give just about anybody a shot.
That are annually.
Our annual programs are Theater Roulette, which has been every May for the last 20 years, 21 years, something like that, which is a professional short play festival. And then we have our Young Writers Festival, which has been, I should say, every July. And that is for high school playwrights who get to participate in a year-long program to develop and create original works that we produce. And then do you want to talk about the sketchy series?
Yeah. We've done several sketch comedy shows in the last couple years, typically around a theme. They've sort of gone in different directions. It started with Sketchy Sex, which was largely an experiment. That was when Jim Azelvander was our artistic director, and he kind of said, hey, what if we put sex in the title? Do you think people will come? And the answer is yes. If you put sex in the title, people will come. And we had a lot. Well, that's a funny. I just said something very, but that's not how I meant it. So we had a lot of fun with that show, and then after that we did Sketchy Pitches, which had strong female characters as the inspiration. And this past October we did a Halloween show, which ended up converting to being all digital and being online because it was in the midst of COVID. So the Halloween sketch show is still available on our YouTube page. That'll be up there and it's free. We have a lot, well, as Julie, you sort of referenced our sort of weird, wacky sense of humor that MadLab has. And we do like to have a lot of fun. I think some people prefer to take their theater very seriously, and I prefer to take my theater pretty silly when appropriate. So yeah, we enjoy our sketch comedy, and it's probably something we'll continue to do.
One of my favorite lines from my first ever MadLab show, I got to say, oh no, we don't want to be educated. We'd much rather be entertained.
And wouldn't we? And especially at a time like we're having right now, one of the things I missed this year in particular was being able to go to the theaters and that I enjoy, which MadLab is one of the ones I really enjoy. I like the small box. I like the small intimacy, of the crowd. I can whip in there and whip on out of there, and it's centrally located, downtown and very easy to get to. What changes did you have to make in order to continue to provide us with the entertainment that you've been able to do through virtual and whatever? How did it affect you guys at MadLab? And what are your plans for the rest of this year so far?
I think like most theater companies, we had a really wonderful season planned, and then it all got chucked out the window. So it was, from an emotional standpoint, it was really hard and really sad to see those things that we had wanted to do, and we still hope to do all of those things someday. We're putting all of our planned stuff on pause, not canceled, but it's on pause. And then we are still in the process really of figuring out a lot of new stuff. The Halloween sketch show, we were able to take completely digital, which we were lucky in that sketch comedy does lend itself really easily to being filmed. So that was kind of a simple transition to take that show, which we wanted to do live, but it was okay. It was easy to transition into being digital. You want to talk about?
Yeah, we also are very lucky in that we're an original works theater, so we have the luxury of creating shows to suit our needs and to request shows without royalties. A lot of theaters have to worry about making back enough money to cover the rights to do whatever production they're doing. We were very lucky in that we have we're on our second production that includes all original works specifically written to incorporate COVID safety measures for actors. So actors will be at least 6 feet apart, actors will be wearing PPE, actors will be separated by a barrier, and all of our playwrights for the past 2 productions have donated these scripts free of charge, and we have had actors volunteer to participate in them free of charge, so they are just fundraisers for MadLab. Perk of owning our own building, we have to pay our mortgage even when we're in the middle of COVID. So more than other companies, perhaps, we have been feeling the pinch financially. So we have been very lucky that our mission allows us to continue to create new works and keep people safe at the same time.
I'm glad you brought that up in regards to the fact that there are theater companies that have venues and they still got to pay the bills. And a lot of times we don't think about that, because you have theater companies who don't have venues and they're losing money because they can't use the venue to produce their shows. And then, as you just said, you have the theater companies that have the venues and they can't produce to pay the bills to keep the venue. So now you're in this whole nother realm of, which I hadn't thought about, which is why I like Let's Talk Theater with people, because it's helping us look at things a little differently in regards to the whole picture of producing theater and what it's about. And it's not just about the fact that people can't produce, it's the fact that people who have theater companies also have that extra burden of how we got to keep these buildings. And only way we can keep these buildings is to pay those bills.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important that we all realize the whole business, the whole piece of theater. Like you said, you two, your dynamic duo. We have the creative artist, the creative mind. Then you have the business person over here that keep you focused on, yeah, but it costs this much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because, for Mind for God Productions, I am the artistic director, the business person. And one of the things that I have to do is I have to mentally go, okay, you're just going to be business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because, that creative part wants to just keep making it and producing and, but that business part is over there saying, yeah, but let's look at, like you said, Laura, she helps keep you grounded on certain things. But then, Laura, you also give her the looking at what you have can decide where we can actually take a risk. I can't wait to see what that full production is going to be when we do open back up, because we will open back up.
Mm-hmm.
All of your works, and to get in touch with you guys at MadLab.
You can always go to madlab.net for lots of information on all of our productions. You should also check out our social media. Our Facebook page is very active, and we have some fun stuff on our Instagram, both of those at MadLab Theater. And then our Halloween sketch show and our writer shows and some of our really fun shorts and trailers and things are on our YouTube page. So I'd encourage you to look at that as well.
And our Christmas show is going to have live performances December 3rd through the 12th for a very small socially distanced audience. And then after those live performances, we are going to have a digital version of the show available online as well.
Okay, well, we can't leave Let's Talk Theater without you ladies giving a brief, short word of encouragement to anybody that's out there listening that wants to be an artistic director and wants to be the program manager of a theater company. And so, Colleen, why don't you start first this time, since Laura started off in the beginning?
I'm going to say that nobody out there is dying to be a managing director, but you can fall into it just like I did if you want to. Again, I have no educational background in theater. Everything I know, I learned from experience. I just keep showing up and asking questions, and eventually they gave me a title.
Yeah, I have very similar. If you'd asked me probably 1 month before I became artistic director of MadLab, if I thought I would be artistic director of MadLab, I would have told you, oh, no. They'll get somebody else. They'll find somebody else to do that. And, here I am 3 years later. I think theater especially is one of those businesses that if you show up, you've already done more than 70% of people talking about it. So just show up and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen and Laura. It's been great having you on Let's Talk Theater. And I can't wait to see what's coming up with this Christmas show and 2021. So hopefully I'm going to see you in the black box of MadLab Theater.